Assalamu alaikum everybody and welcome to Step Up, the show for the young Muslimah. I'm Khadija.
And I'm Selma, and in this series we aim to solve issues that affect the youth using Islamic solutions. With sisters from different ages and backgrounds on the series, we aim to show how Islam is applicable and relevant for us in this day and age.
So what's on the show today?
We start off with Ask Big Sister, where Sister Hassaanah will be on the hotspot answering some of our questions about relationships with parents. Do we always have to obey them? How can we better our relationship with them and overcome difficult times? Next up, Rita visits St Lukes Hospice and finds out how we can help those suffering from long-term illnesses. Next, we speak to Sister Rita, a fitness instructor, and ask her about how she got into her line of work.
And lastly, but by no means least, we have a competition for you all to give away some fabulous prizes, so make sure you enter that.
So lots coming up in the next hour. Don't go anywhere.
Today's on Ask Big Sister, we discuss our relationship with our parents. I'm Sarah, and joining me in this discussion, I have my lovely sisters, Selma.
Assalamu alaikum.
And Sumaya.
Assalamu alaikum.
So sisters, the question that I have for you today is, what's your favourite ethnic food?
Okay, well, mine is definitely like Chinese, or like more specifically just noodles in general, like egg noodles or udon noodles, and when they have like teriyaki sauce, and oh my god, I could just go on forever.
Well, you're making my mouth water a bit now. What about you, Sumaya?
Mine has to be Turkish food. I mean, it's just amazing. The kebabs and the spices, absolutely love it.
And Turkish tea, can't forget Turkish tea.
Apple Turkish tea. Have you tried that?
I haven't actually.
It's amazing.
Sounds good. Sounds really good. For me, it has to be Asian food, especially like give me a perfect biryani and we can be friends forever. Like honestly, Asian food is my favourite, and I think it's really nice that we can have that kind of appreciation of different cultures. You know, growing up in a multicultural society, I think that's one of the positive consequences of it. Alhamdulillah. And I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but perhaps the older generation, our parents' generation, don't really tend to have that kind of appreciation.
Yeah, definitely.
But of course, as young people who are growing up at a different time, or sometimes in a different place than that of our parents, there can often be misunderstandings on both ends. But with constant emphasis of being the best to our parents in Islam, how do we overcome these cultural barriers and avoid jeopardizing our relationship with our parents? To help us answer these questions, we have with us Sister Hassaanah, who's on the Big Sister hot seat today. Big Sister, please join us.
Hot seat, that sounds scary.
Alhamdulillah, we've had Sister Hassaanah on the show before, but for viewers who are just tuning in, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I hate this bit. Basically, I'm Hassaanah, and I've worked on a couple of other Islam channel shows like Women's AM. At the moment I have a little baby who's not so little anymore, she's 1, so yeah, she's a little madam. So but yeah, I'm basically at home with her, but alhamdulillah, I love to kind of tune into the shows and things like that. So yeah, it's great to see young sisters here, alhamdulillah, doing their thing. So yeah, looking forward to it, inshallah.
Okay, so sister, why are parents valued and respected in Islam?
Well, I think that's a really important question to begin with. And, just from a purely kind of materialistic point of view, if we looked at, our mothers and what they did for us, even before we were born, they, looked after us while we were in their womb. They cared for us once we were born, when we were absolutely unable to do anything for ourselves. They cared for us, they fed us, they clothed us, they bathed us. They did basically everything for us, and they looked after us for, even up until now. My mum still does things for me. So I think just from that point of view, it's clear that our parents do so much for us. They look after our emotional, our economic, our spiritual, our moral, every kind of upbringing that we have, our psychological upbringing. They take care of that and they nurture that. And I don't think I truly understood what that meant until I had a baby myself. And I remember as soon as I had my daughter, I kind of looked at my mum. I was like, I'm so sorry for what I put you through. And my mum was like, yeah, now you understand. So I think it's it's one of those things where you don't appreciate how much your parents do for you. And once you do, you're like, gosh, SubhanAllah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing how much they do for us, and we don't even realise it.
Yes, I actually tend to hear that a lot from mothers, that even fathers, they're just like, oh, all these years, and then they go and give like a really heartfelt apology to their parents. So, I mean, it's very easy to forget these things, as you mentioned. So how can we go about, achieving that respectful and ideal relationship with our parents?
Well, I think it's important to begin with the fact that, when we're at that age, that kind of important pivotal time in our our lives being teenager. And that is a really, really important time in our lives. And I remember I used to teach teenagers and I spent all my days with them. So, you know, I kind of had a lot of conversations with a lot of them about their relationship with their parents. And I think one of the important things that came out of those conversations is the feeling that my parents don't get me. They just don't understand me. And you sometimes feel like your friends understand you better, and you're just on a completely different wavelength from your parents. And everyone feels like that at some point in their lives. That's a completely normal and natural feeling. But the important thing is, we know how much obeying and kind of respecting our parents, we know how important that is in Islam. And actually, just to kind of put it into perspective, you know, Allah says in Surah Al-Isra, verse 23, and your Lord has decreed that you worship none except him, and to your parents good treatment. So just after it says, don't associate anyone with Allah, it says, treat your parents well. So we can see just how important it is. And just in the same way, sometimes we don't understand maybe, you know, why we're praying. Sometimes we just pray because we know we have to pray. And, you know, obviously once you start to begin to understand it, then you can appreciate it. But at the beginning, if you're just like, okay, I'm just praying because I know I need to do this. In the same way, sometimes we don't understand why we have to obey our parents. Our parents might tell us, I don't want you going out today. And you're just like, oh, come on, like, you know, I've been doing my work all week, I've been helping out, like, what haven't I done? Why don't you want me to go out? And sometimes we just can't understand their reasoning behind it. But the reality is, we don't always need to understand everything. Just in the same way that, you know, we worship Allah and we obey Allah, even if sometimes we don't understand the reasons why, we know we have to obey our parents, even though sometimes we might not understand the reasons why. So I think it's a similar kind of reasoning. And sometimes we just have to kind of just let it go. I think that's really hard to do, but I think that's an important thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, I want to pick up on something you've said, where a lot of the times, sometimes we might want to go out with our friends, and our parents might not let us. I mean, how can we deal with, you know, such restrictions and limitations that our parents may put? How can we, you know, deal with disagreements that we may have with them?
Well, I'm going to sound really old right now, and I'm going to say, I know you're saying restrictions and limitations, but the reality is no parent wants something that's going to make their child upset. You know, right now I look at my daughter and she's only 1 year old, but as soon as something makes her cry, I'm like, okay, what's happening here? Let me sort it out. I don't want her to cry. It's a really horrible feeling to think that your child is upset or that they're in pain or upset or sad in any kind of way. And, you know, what a parent wants for their child is happiness. And I think, you know, that's kind of a universal thing. So just to kind of go back to the question, if a parent is restricting or limiting you in any way, it's only because they feel that is in your best interest. And I know, you know, a lot of people are going to say, oh gosh, she is going to say that, you know, she's an oldie now. But, you know, I don't think that's the case. And I think what it comes down to is, I read a really interesting quote actually, and it was, don't anger your parents in order to please other people. Those people did not spend their lives building you. And I think that's really, really important to kind of remember. Our parents spent their whole lives, and they will continue to do that, building us up and making us into the best version of ourselves. And, you know, to kind of, you know, have that disagreement with them on something so small as, can I go out or can I go to my friend's house? It kind of, for me, feels like a little bit of a non-issue. And it's something that can be resolved very easily with communication and kind of an open way of speaking with them. So I think that's really important to note. But I will say this, is that sometimes when you're kind of discussing things with your parents, if they say to you, no, you can't go out tonight, it kind of feels like they're saying to you, you don't know how to make a good decision. Or if they say to you, have you got your Oyster card, or have you got enough money on you? They're saying you're not old enough to think for yourself. It can sometimes feel like that. But the reality is, when a parent asks you those kind of questions, they're just doing it to make sure you're okay. And it's how we take things. And I always say this to my little brother, who's not so little anymore, who's going to be 19, but I always have this conversation with you. It's definitely how you take things. So you can take it in the way that, oh, they're just being so annoying and they're just checking up on me and don't they trust me and I'm perfectly capable of sorting my own Oyster card out. Or you could say, okay, you know what, my parent really cares about me enough to think, am I okay? Have I got enough money to come home? Do I need anything? So I think it's a lot about our approach to things rather than their approach to things. We're the younger ones and we have to be the ones who are kind of doing the running a little bit. So I know it's sometimes difficult, but I think that's a reality of it. And, you know, one last thing is that sometimes I think about what my parents went through and, you know, just to give you an example of my family background, my dad, when he came to the UK, he came when he was 15 years old. And when he was in India, he didn't even have a pair of shoes. Only got his first pair of shoes when he was 15 years old. And he always tells us that story. Not to kind of, you know, do anything other than to teach us a lesson of where he was and where he is now. Our parents went through so much struggle and effort to get us to where we are now. And I think this is one of the biggest problems of our generation. And I'm putting myself in the same age group as you guys. I'm putting it there. I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have, is that we were born into this. So for us, we don't see the struggle that they experience. We don't know the fact that they had to go through difficulty and efforts to get to where they are now. For us, everything came, alhamdulillah, pretty easy. So I think just remember that struggle when you're kind of having that discussion with them.
And to have that humility, isn't it? Like, I think what you were saying before in the previous question, when you're talking about you might not understand, you know, why they're telling you to do a certain thing, but just kind of taking that step back and being like, they've gone through it. They know what it's like. They're just looking out for us. Alhamdulillah. But I feel kind of bad asking this question, but do our parents necessarily have a say in everything that we do?
I think that's a really important question. I read this really funny quote, and it was, respect your parents because they passed school without Google. And that's so true. You know, they didn't have all the things that we did, but they've still got the wisdom there, and they got through all of their experiences with so much, you know, compassion and humility, that there are so many lessons we can learn from them. And that's definitely something I've picked up now that I'm older, is the fact that there's so many ways of dealing with things. And sometimes I'll just go to my parents and say, look, how would you deal with this situation? And just by talking to them, I get a completely different perspective. And sometimes we're so headstrong, we're like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do it this way. My way is the right way. Excuse me. And that's just not always the case. Sometimes our elders have an incredible amount of experience and life lessons that we can benefit from. And I think it would be such a shame not to utilize that. And Islam is very much about kind of nurturing relationships. And part of the reason why we're supposed to have such a strong relationship with our parents is the fact that our parents are there for us in our good times, in our bad times. And they're basically our rock, they're our support system. And when they get older, we need to be that for them. So, you know, coming back to your question, do parents have a say in everything we do? You know, there's lots of decisions that we make for ourselves. And I remember when I was going to sixth form and I had to pick my subjects, I was really passionate about languages. And I said to my mum and dad, I came home, I remember this conversation so clearly. I came home and I was like, I know which subjects I want to do. I kind of just put it out there, you know, testing the waters a little bit. I waited for a day when they were in a really good mood, by the way. And I was like, I want to do Spanish. And I just, you know, my mum and dad just looked at each other and were like, Spanish, like, where is this girl coming from? But, you know, we had a discussion about it, and eventually we came to the conclusion that actually, you know, it's good for me to pursue something that I really enjoyed doing. And one of the other subjects they wanted me to do, I decided to do that. So I did a subject I really enjoyed, a subject they wanted me to do. And the other two, I was like, okay, I'll just pick what I'm good at. So I think, whilst it's not the case that you necessarily have to kind of obey your parents in everything, like in the example, if they're telling you to do something that's against Islam, we should definitely not obey them in that scenario. In everything else, the reality is, yes, we kind of do need to listen to them, but I think that needs to be in a way of communication and kind of openly having that conversation. It doesn't mean they tell you to sit and you sit. It doesn't work like that. I think parents have a lot more wisdom than we give them credit for. I think definitely you just need to kind of have that conversation with them. And, you know, I'm saying this and I'm shelving this for when my daughter's 15, and I'm going to play her this episode and say, look, you know, this is what you need to do.
So as you've said, it is really important to listen to your parents, but I've come across some people whose parents discourage them from practicing Islam. So what advice would you give to sisters who have this struggle between their parents and Islam?
That's a really, really interesting question, and one which I think a lot of people can relate to. I mean, I've come across definitely some sisters who have wanted to wear the hijab or the abaya, and their parents have not been keen on it at all. And a lot of it is because they feel like that's only something you do when you're older. And unfortunately, they've had, you know, numerous struggles with their parents about this issue. And just kind of putting that issue to the side for a second, if you know of any sisters who are going through a difficulty like that, I think, you know, the best thing we can do is just be as supportive as we possibly can be, because I can't imagine how difficult it must be to go through something like that. And it's very important for us to be there for them and to be on their side. But coming back to how we should, treat our parents, we know, regardless of whether our parents are Muslim or not, we still have to approach our parents with kindness. We're not even allowed to say "uff" to them, and obviously that we don't tend to say "uff" to anybody, but we're not supposed to raise our voice to our parents. We're supposed to treat them with kindness. So even when we're disagreeing with them on key issues, we still have to treat them with kindness. Yeah. So I think whilst it's very, very important that we continue to do the things that we're commanded to do by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether that's wearing our hijab or praying or whatever else it is, we do have to do those things. When we're discussing it with our parents, we don't need to go in there and say, look, I know better than you. This is what I'm doing. I don't care what you say. That's really, I'm on the hook. That's really not the right way to approach it. And I think if we go in with that attitude, our parents are going to be like, okay, if this is Islam, then, I'm sorry, this is not what I want for my child. But if we show them that actually by practicing Islam, we are a better person, we're more obedient, we're kinder, we're gentler to our parents, we have more respect for them, we help them more, we're just a better human being. Who wouldn't want to love that? Who wouldn't want to know more about that? So I think the responsibility is on us to make sure that we're not only kind of implementing it within ourselves, but also being the best person we can be to everybody around us. And once we do that, then inshallah, regardless of whether our parents are Muslim or not Muslim, I don't think they'd discourage you from being a better human being. So I think that's important.
That's a really good point, because they're not going to, especially if the parents aren't practicing, they're not going to understand the theological aspect of Islam. They're not really going to care. But if they see that, like you said, you've become a better person as a whole, then I think they'll start to appreciate Islam, if anything.
I know a lot of Revet brothers and sisters who have said the same thing, that actually their parents were really worried when they became Muslim, but as soon as they saw that they were actually a better person, they actually said to them, this is the best decision you could have made. And I think that's something, whether you're a Revet or not, I think that's something we can all try and implement in our lives a little bit better. That comes to myself first and foremost. I need to try and implement that as well.
I mean, I think Islam does have a very places a big importance on our parents. For example, heaven itself lies below our mother's feet.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, some people may not have such of a good relationship with their parents. So how can they build a relationship which is based on respect when they haven't had one before?
That's a really important question, and I think it's very easy to talk about all the problems that we have, having arguments with our parents, disagreements with them. But the reality is we need to come to some sort of solution, and unless we discuss that, there's really no point in having this whole discussion. And it needs to be practical advice as well. We could say, okay, just be a good person, but that's not really going to help. What does that actually mean on a day-to-day kind of situation? And I think, as with anything, we have to look at what the Quran and the Sunnah says. And I was listening to a lecture once, and the Sheikh was talking about this, and it absolutely just blew me away. And it's the ayah that I'm referring to is in Surah Isra, and it's verse 24. Allah says, "And your Lord has decreed, and lower to them the wing of humility out of mercy." This verse is absolutely beautiful. And when you think about what Allah is saying, and lower to them the wing of humility. The wing obviously is referring to a bird. Now we know in English, when you're kind of leaving your parents' home and you're going off and doing your own thing, it's called like flying the nest. That's what we say. Oh, you've flown the nest. And that expression comes because obviously when a bird gets old enough, it leaves its mother's nest and goes off and does its own thing. So when we get to a stage where we might be going to university, we might have got our own job, we might be more independent, we fly the nest and we go and do our own thing. But here Allah is telling us, and lower your wings, even though you're able to go out there and do your thing and go and earn money, lower your wings. Why? Because our parents lowered their wings for us. There may have been times when our parents wanted to go on holiday, they wanted to go and do their own thing, but no, they had all of us, trailing behind them. So a lot of times our parents, most of the time actually, our parents put us first. So here Allah is telling us, actually, you know what, it's time to lower your wings out of humility to your parents and obey them and respect them out of kindness to them. And I think it's such a beautiful way of looking at it. Even though we're able to do all the things that we can do, actually it's better for us to, out of humility, lower our wings and go and serve our parents. And for every single time we serve them, we get reward for it. What an incredible thing. Just by smiling at your parents, you get a reward for that. So, I mean, you know, just go home and smile at your mum all day. And, you know, alhamdulillah, that's such a wonderful thing. I really think it's a beautiful expression.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of, you know, the time when the companion of the Prophet ﷺ took his mother on his back when they went for Hajj. And then he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, you know, have I, you know, he felt really proud of himself. He's like, have I paid her back? The Prophet ﷺ was like, no.
Not even for one cramp. Yeah,
exactly.
That's amazing. Cramp. And, you know, actually that reminds me, a man actually went to Abdullah ibn Umar and said to him, you know, I'm so scared of all of these sins I've committed. And he was actually like trembling when he thought about the sins that he had committed. And he wanted to tell him about the major sins that he had done. And he wanted to ask him, you know, do you think I'll be forgiven for this? And Ibn Umar asked him, are your parents still alive? And the man said, just my mother's alive. And he said, as long as you feed your mother and talk to her softly, then Allah will inshallah forgive you. So just imagine that. If you have committed any sin, as long as you are treating your parents with respect, feeding them, and just speaking to them softly, what simple things, then, you know, inshallah, Allah will forgive us. So really, there's no excuse for any of us to not try and treat our parents with the utmost respect, not just because we know that if we do that, we're going to get the reward for it. You know, I don't like that kind of attitude where you do something because you're like, oh, if I do this, I'm going to get 1,000 rewards. Let me add it up on my calculator. How many rewards have I got today? That's really not the way to go about it. I mean, obviously, we do something because we want to do it. And I think, you know, when we think about how much our parents have done for us, naturally, we'd want to do things that make them happy. So, yeah, I think that's really important. And also, just on a side note, I could talk about this all day, but just on a side note, you know, teenage years are really, really difficult to navigate through. And I remember having a really hard time kind of understanding where my parents were coming from on loads of different things. I went through a stage of wanting to be like a punk rock kind of goth and, you know, just wanting to paint my whole eyes black and have white and all of that. And my mum was like, I don't think so. That's not happening. And I was like, come on, you're not letting me be creative. You're not letting me express myself. And she was like, yeah, you can express yourself in your bedroom and that's about it kind of thing. But I think, you know, the reality is whilst we might not understand all of their decision making, as we get older, and, you know, when we get in our 20s, I think you can start to appreciate your parents and you have a whole different type of relationship with them. And it becomes such a beautiful relationship. And I think anyone who's kind of past the late teenage years, you'll kind of appreciate that you have a completely different relationship with your parents. It's absolutely amazing.
Alhamdulillah. And I remember you mentioned smiling. That's a very practical, very, you know, nice thing to do for our parents every day. What other things do you think, you know, on a day-to-day basis that us as young people can adopt to, you know, maintain and, you know, further develop our relationship with our parents?
I think just to begin with, it's something very simple that we could do at the end of every salah. I think, you know, we all obviously try to make a dua at the end of our salah, and there's plenty of duas in the Quran that are specifically for our parents. And one of them is in Surah Al-Isra, verse 24. My Lord, bestow on them your mercy as they did bring me up when I was small. They had mercy on me when I was smaller, so Allah have mercy on them. What a beautiful thing to say about our parents and to kind of ask Allah for at the end of every salah. What a simple thing that takes less than a minute to do. And I think that's an important thing. Make dua for your parents, whether they're alive or they're passed away. Continue to make dua for them. And something I found which has been really beneficial is try to have dinner every single day with your parents. I know a lot of people go and have dinner in their room, they go in front of the TV and they have their dinner. Someone has dinner at one time, another person has dinner at another time. No, I think at least have one meal a day where you're all sitting around the table together and sharing something together. I think that's really important. And, you know, it's amazing. You can tell each other about each other's day. You can, you know, share jokes, and you know, it's just a really lovely way of doing things. Another thing I would say is try and spend at least half an hour a week in your parents' company. So whether that's your mum or your dad. And I know a lot of people have instances where their parents are divorced or separated. So, you know, try and make that time with each parent special and personalised. You know, a lot of times I know I've sat with my mum and dad and asked them questions about their childhood and their experiences and their grandparents, and it's really interesting to hear about your history and to get a sense of who you are and where you've come from, and I think that's just a really nice thing to do. Just ask them questions rather than them asking you. They spend so much time thinking, are you okay, do you need anything, how's school going, have you done your homework, have you done this, you know, whatever else it is. You know, it's nice to be able to kind of put the spotlight on them a little bit and ask them some questions.
It shows them that you appreciate them by asking them questions.
Absolutely, definitely.
And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but you can tell that they have a lot of satisfaction in telling their stories, growing up and everything. It really makes them happy, subhanAllah. But Jazakallah khair, this is a really insightful discussion. I'll be sure to go give my parents cheesy grins tonight, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, a great discussion. It's very clear that parents are honoured in Islam above all others and have the potential to be our ticket to Jannah if we treat them with kindness and respect. I end with ayah 15 from Surah Al-Ahqaf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "We have enjoined on man kindness to his parents. In pain did his mother bear him, and in pain did she give him birth." A huge jazakallah khair to our big sister Hassaanah. We're off to a break now, but do tweet us and let us know your thoughts on our discussion. That's at Islam Channel, #StepUp. We will see you in 3. Assalamu alaikum.
Caring for the elderly and those who are ill is an obligation of the greatest importance in Islam. But for many of us without relatives in such conditions, it's something that we tend to overlook. However, we must remember that Islam has encouraged us to care for the elderly and those who are sick, whether they are related to us or not, and to afford them the respect and honour that their age and situation demands. Today I am here at St Lukes Hospice, an organisation committed to improving the quality of life for those with advanced progressive illnesses for which there is no cure. I am here to meet the people who are doing a wonderful job keeping such an organisation going. So Shanaz, what is your role and how did you get involved?
I'm a complementary therapist. I do relaxation treatments here for the patients. That involves reflexology, massage, Reiki, acupuncture, anything that can help to relax the patient. When they come to us, they need support with their medical treatments, so they will have the doctors to help them out. Us, the complementary therapists, we deal with the relaxation side and help them with their sleep, or if they're not able to eat well, we help with that. I got involved in working here after my children started school and I had done all these therapies. I wanted to do some volunteering and I came to this lovely place and I've been here almost, more than 16 years.
How can young people get involved in volunteering?
We have loads of volunteering places. They could help with the garden, they can help in the shops, they can do admin. Loads and loads of opportunities. Tell us what you're interested in and we can find you something to do. Look up online and send us an email and we'll get back in touch with you as soon as possible. Yes, please get in touch with us.
St Lukes Hospice was founded by a gentleman called John Corner, who was life president and 25th anniversary patron, who sadly passed away in February 2012. John played a lead role in establishing the hospice. His dedication to the idea of building a hospice for the people of Harrow and Wembley inspired those who shared that dream. I speak to Caroline Cullen to find out what inspired her to work for the hospice. So Caroline, what is your role and what does it involve?
I work Monday to Friday from 8 until 4. I manage a team of healthcare assistants, complementary therapists, volunteers, activities coordinator, and together we work closely as a team and we provide support for patients accessing our services as an outpatient. We also offer carer support. We see patients for symptom control and we're very much focusing on encouraging sort of independence and confidence. We have 2 days of the week when people can come and spend all day here, and that's for those people that are quite isolated because of their illness or their symptoms. So they'll come from 10 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. And the other days of the week we have more of a flexible service where people can access services as an outpatient.
What are some of the illnesses people face here?
The majority of the patients who access our services have a cancer diagnosis, but we're also seeing a lot more patients who have a non-cancer diagnosis, and that could be anything from end-stage heart failure, a respiratory condition, motor neuron disease, people who have a heart condition, a respiratory condition, Parkinson's disease, anything really that's considered to limit their life expectancy. I've been doing palliative care for about 14-15 years now. In this current post, I've been working here for 18 months. Prior to that, I had 3 years in a local hospital as a nurse specialist in palliative care. And prior to that, I worked on the inpatient unit here in the hospice. So have been very involved with the hospice in all roles, and I live locally as well. So from a charitable perspective, I support them.
How can young people get involved in volunteering at St Lukes Hospice?
Well, obviously St Lukes is a charity. We are very well supported by the local community. We have a lot of volunteers through our day services, but from a personal perspective, I would like to see more younger people involved. And I think the way we can do that is to actually get out there, promote the hospice more, the value of it to the community, but work more closely with schools and colleges, and to get people sort of more engaged in what we do. Because I think the hospice has at times has a bit of a negativity about it, and I think getting young people in and just seeing what we do, and I think will be very valuable.
It must be a very satisfying job to work here.
It is very satisfying. I've been doing palliative care for a long time. People do say to me, it must be very sad, and it is sad. I also feel quite privileged to be part of that individual's journey, because we're born to die, none of us sort of live forever on this earth. And I think being part of somebody and helping them make quite difficult decisions is fulfilling, but I consider it quite a privilege.
I'm Director of Fundraising and Community Relations. So my job is basically trying to raise the funds that we need to provide free care to people in Harrow and Brent at the end of their lives. I'm also very involved in making connections with organisations within the borough who support us and get involved, whether it's through volunteering or donating. I've always worked in the charitable sector, but I had a couple of close friends who were looked after by another hospice, and I saw for myself the difference that it made to them and their families. I've also sadly known people who haven't had access to hospice care, and I've just seen the differences it makes to them and their families if they can get that support at the end of their lives. Most of the patients are having a peaceful time, their families are able to have quality time with them, talk to them without worrying about their physical needs. As you can see, the grounds here are really beautiful, and they're all looked after by our volunteer gardeners. They take great pride in just keeping the environment really beautiful. We do everything we can think of to raise money. We have to raise about 75% of the funds that we need to provide free hospice care. So we apply to charitable trusts for specific projects. Sometimes people help us by leaving a legacy or a gift to us in their wills. We run lots and lots of fundraising events. So, for example, our biggest event is our Ladies Midnight Walk, which takes place in June every year. 1,500 ladies, all dressed in pink, walk through Harrow. They do a 9-mile walk, and together they raise about £200,000 for the hospice. Our local mosque in Stanmore, a group of ladies from the mosque take part in the walk, and they raise funds for us. This year I was full of admiration for them because it was actually Ramadan, so they broke their fast just before the walk, and they invited some of the volunteers and staff and patients to break the fast with them, which was really nice. And then a group of the men from the mosque helped to marshal the walk and keep all the ladies safe as they walked round.
And how can others get involved in volunteering?
Well, we need about 900 volunteers every year at the hospice. So all of our receptionists are volunteers, our gardeners are volunteers. We have 17 charity shops, and lots of the people who help there in serving the customers, sorting the donations and so on. We also need lots of volunteers at our events, so they do things like registering the people who are taking part, preparing the refreshments. We have a committee for each event, and so they help out with the organising of the event. And that's actually a really good way for young people to get some experience of running an event, and I think they find it quite valuable for themselves as well.
See you after the break. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Step Up, the series for every young Muslimah.
For our final segment, we first speak to an upcoming talent.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Rita, I'm a fitness instructor and I live in Ealing. been a fitness instructor for 10 years now, and currently I'm running 2 classes in the West Ealing Islamic Centre Mosque. Decided to get into fitness at around 16 years old because I was getting a bit heavy when I was around 16, so that is when I decided to do a bit of exercise at home. So I used to just do exercise from DVDs, just in the living room, because I felt like I was really unhealthy, and I was like, I think I need to do something about it. So, but then I enjoyed it as well. It was something that, you know, that made me feel good, and it built up my self-esteem as well. It really did give me a lot of confidence. I got more serious about it when I was around 26. A few years after I reverted to Islam, I wanted to start practicing Islam, and at the same time, there was no women's fitness classes. I just wanted to be comfortable, and I just wanted to train, you know, to my full potential, but I felt like I couldn't do that. I thought it wasn't compatible. Fitness and Islam is not compatible, so then I kind of was rethinking about whether I should get into this. So that is when I became a TA. I started to become a teaching assistant, but then again at the back of my mind I was thinking I really want to be a fitness instructor, which is why I approached the sisters in the mosque, in the West Ealing Mosque, and then I also, you know, if I could start fitness classes in, you know, in the gym, which you have. Sisters love it, you know, we're all getting together as a community. I think it's important that we have this because this is something that we've actually been, if there's a gap in the market, I think it's been missing in this area for a long time. The mosque shouldn't only just be about, you know, praying. It should be open to, you know, people who are into fitness. It should be about, you know, education. It should be about healthy eating, healthy living. It should include the kids. Another reason why I wanted to start fitness classes here is because I wanted to be closer to the sisters. I wanted to be part of the Muslim community because I felt like I wasn't. So I mean, that was definitely a door open for me. You know, just to live our passions and dreams, because I didn't want to do fitness instructing because I started to wear my hijab. I was kind of like, well, I'm not just gonna stop doing what I love to do just because I'm wearing a hijab. So it was just, I think I just had that drive in me that I have to do this regardless, and I have to start breaking down some barriers some way. So it was just a case where, you know, I had the opportunity to do it, and I just went for it. Health and fitness and Islam is a big part of Islam as well. It's something that, you know, that actually is part of the deen. It makes us feel good. It gives us more energy to run around after the children and, you know, everything else. It brings the community together. You know, we're just having fun at the same time, and we're also keeping fit. People are actually kind of relating to and just bringing more fitness into their lives. Before that, you know, people weren't really doing anything in their lives physically. It's been positive because there's a demand for it. So I'm just kind of like, right, I'm just gonna try and meet those areas. Whether you want to be a mechanic or an engineer or anything, the Quran does not forbid you to do these things. There's no limitations with Islam. It's just, you just have to, you know, follow your heart, follow your dreams, and, you know, just believe in it, just work hard at it, and then, you know, everything will fall into place. Islam always has to come first. Put Islam first, and then inshallah, Allah will guide you. When I even go to the gyms, I see a lot of the sisters coming to fitness classes, and you know, we're all there. And it's definitely something that they like to, we all like to get together, and we all like to do it as a community. We like to train in groups. I do see a lot of young girls, a lot of them, and you see a lot of young girls even wearing their hijabs, and I see them going into the gym, and they're covered up, and they're just training, just like, you know, how you should in the community, and that's how it should be. If you feel like you're a bit uncomfortable about it, maybe come to maybe the gym, women's gym sessions only. Just inquire about any classes going on within the mosque. Obviously we're here. Maybe one-to-one sessions if you want to, just to, you know, to make you feel a little bit more comfortable and fitter within yourself. Just follow your heart, and it's okay not to know what you want to do in life sometimes, because, you know, that's the whole journey of getting to where you really want to be. Just enjoy the journey, and then you will get to the point where it's like, right, okay, I think this is me, this is where I want to be, and then you just have to go for it.
Amazing, mashallah.
You just don't see many women in these fields, let alone a Muslim woman. Just proves that living by the laws of Islam does not inhibit a person, but allows and encourages growth and excellence. Well, that's it for this episode, and what an episode it's been. Please do email us with your comments and feedback on stepup@islamchannel.tv.
Absolutely. Next week, we discuss the impact of celebrity culture in our lives. How does their lifestyle affect ours? We look at another up-and-coming talent.
Catch us again, same time, same place, next week. And until then, Assalamu alaikum from the team.
Assalamu alaikum. Bringing to light the
What a true inspirational. Come on!
See you after the break, where I don't know what's wrong with me.
How cool. How fantastic.
Fantastic.